Matt, thank you for this opportunity to talk to you about your career, your continuing aspirations, your existing achievements. I was fortunate enough to be involved with a recording of your band last month at the Basement in the Bond Street Bar in Asbury Park. I was absolutely blown away, and thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us on that great show, and we had so much fun. You know, the Bond Street Basement sounds good. Like, surprising. You'd think it'd be a basement kind of, sound quality, but it really sounds great down there, and we were just thrilled to do a show with you guys.
It's actually somewhat shocking, right? Because you go down there and you see all that cement, and you're like, I'm going to feel like a 15-year-old practicing for a battle of the bands. And then somehow all those weird angles and stuff, it works.
It does. I mean, the audio that we've heard thus far with the rough mixes, it's like, wow, this is pretty incredible, you know?
Yeah, we're hoping that you guys, when you're done reviewing those rough mixes, we're hoping, can I say?
Yeah.
That there's a potential here that
Absolutely.
You may be doing a Dolby Atmos release with some of this repertoire.
Absolutely love to. And I know a lot of our fans that showed up that night have already been texting me, man, when's that coming out? It's like, oh, we're working on it. So
you got some great fans, because people saw me, working some of the audio gear and stuff, and a lot of them are tapers themselves, and I was really, I got to tell you, there was one gentleman up front. I guess was he a veteran?
Yes, he was. Yes,
and
he is.
Well, right. I was really touched by the deference and respect that you gave to him and that extra attention.
Sure.
You don't see that every day. And it was really classy, and it was a touching thing to bear witness to. That was really cool.
No, it's all my pleasure. I grew up in a household of military people. My dad was in the Air Force, and my grandfather was in World War II. He was in Pearl Harbor when the Japanese bombed, and
oh damn,
and he lived through it, thankfully, and went on to fight in World War II. And his brother, my great uncle, I believe he was in Korea, and then my brother is a Marine, and my nephew now, his son is a Marine. So it's I was surrounded by military, people, and so it means a lot to me. I know those guys have a tough job.
Marines are no joke.
Yes, they're I know they
like just your basic Marine, what they go through compared to other branches of the service. Is like if they've made it through their basic training, don't mess with them.
Yes, no.
They're formidable human beings.
There they are. And I've hung with some of my brothers, Marine buddies, and they're just great people. They just it's great to know any of them. So we actually did a song on our last record, Hand in Glove, called "Tore Up from the Floor Up." And speaking of my buddy that was there the other night, Staff Sergeant Kenny, he actually helped me with some of the words for the song. So I wanted to write something for the military that was more, I guess, badass would be the right word. Of course, with the job that some of them have to do. So nothing wrong with a great patriotic song, and of course, I love our country as much as anybody else. So, but I wanted to do something that was.
You don't seem like you have any apology for that either.
No,
because we do seem to be enduring an era of great political divide. And,
sadly, yeah.
And it's not always fashionable to be patriotic. And, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. We should all be loving this country.
Of course, we all live here, and we're all in it together, and, we should all be getting along. I mean, there's nothing, we have differences, obviously.
Yeah. So let's steer clear of that.
No, yeah.
Because I have a feeling we might have personal inclinations that are similar, but we could discuss that offline.
No, it's all good.
Tell me about the band today. What's the next gig? What's the current state of the Matto Reband?
We are constantly, obviously, looking for more touring and more performance action. Of course, the way that the industry is nowadays, it's the only place to make money too. So, but we are definitely. We're about 80% done with recording a new record.
That's awesome.
And then, of course, the Atmos thing that we want to put out as well. We're excited about that too. So, and we'll be back, on tour this summer as well.
As a touring artist, have you found it's become more competitive? Like some of the bigger legacy acts are kind of fighting for some of the more mid-level stuff, and the mid-level guys are kind of fighting. Like it just seems like it's harder than ever.
It definitely feels that way. And, for us being, independent artists, and we don't have a big financier behind us, we're doing this on shoestring budget most of the time. But the positive side of that is that we get to play exactly the music that we want to play. There's nobody in a suit and tie telling us that we should be doing it more like this. Not that there's anything wrong with that either, but it is nice to have the artistic freedom. But it's difficult, when we roll out in our motor coach with a trailer, it's like I pray that we don't break down, because we did break down once and it cost us $7,000 to get back on the road. We were stuck in the middle of Kansas for 3 days waiting for the mechanic, because working on a bus is not something that is very easy to do, and we were stuck, and and I don't have the mechanical knowledge to fix what was wrong, unfortunately. So we were stuck, and it was $7,000, and there goes the tour budget, and there goes the profit.
Brutal.
And we have to get home. We got to get our equipment home, so we got to finish. We only missed one show, which was great, but I pray nothing like that happens, but it does happen. So you got to take an account for that.
Still a very cool rock star problem to have. Your tour bus is broken down in the middle of Kansas. I mean, you should at least get a song out of that. I'm something about cornfields.
Yes, and I hope that that memory comes up when we are sitting down to write a song, because it was still. I mean, we still had a great time. We always have a good time together, But
it's ironic that you broke down in Kansas. The first time I went across the country with a band when I was a kid, we had a U-Haul with an old Dodge car, and it broke down in frickin' Kansas.
Wow. And
the same thing.
Kansas is a beautiful state. If you haven't driven through it, it is beautiful to see it. But
the first 3 hours of seeing the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're stuck there,
the other 10 of going through Iowa too and seeing all the same thing again, it gets rough.
When you're stuck there for 3 days, and you know how much money it's going to take to put that coach back on the road.
So when you were a kid first starting off, let's go all the way back. Did you ever even imagine that you'd have such a problem? Like where did this start? Where did your passion for being a guitarist start? Take me all the way back.
Wow. Okay. I started playing guitar because my dad played guitar, and he took me to my first concert, which was Les Paul. And I remember people asking Les Paul questions from the audience. I was probably 5 or 6, I guess, maybe 7. And I just remember how cool Les Paul was, like answering these questions and saying, "Yeah, I built the pickups in my kitchen," and people were laughing, and it was really just inspiring, that and definitely my mom's influence, because she was such a huge Elvis Presley fan, and that rubbed off on me. I think Elvis Presley's birthday should be a national holiday.
I'm with you, man. He's the king for a reason.
Absolutely, and. Anyway, so having that influence of my dad playing, and then he started teaching me when I was 9. But at 9, I didn't have enough patience to really stick with it. Maybe a month went by, and my fingers hurt, and it wasn't until I was 13 when I had a really close friend named Mark, and Mark's dad was the vice president of Kramer Guitars, which I didn't know, and this is 1984. Right, so Kramer's kind of like the new upcoming thing. Eddie Van Halen's now playing Kramer.
I remember the guitar player ad for the Focus 600.
Yeah. Yep. So I was friends with my friend Mark for about a year, and I had no idea that his dad did that. I had no idea that my friend Mark even played guitar. So when he came to school with a guitar, and all the girls were like, "Oh my God!"
I knew there was a girl in there.
Oh yeah, and and I was like, "Wait, why didn't you tell me that you played guitar?" And Mark was like, "You never asked." I'm like, I didn't know I was supposed to ask that question. I thought we were talking about Rambo, the latest movie that just came out.
So you caught the fever.
I did,
you saw him getting that adulation. You're like, damn, I want to get in on that.
Yep. Seems like some good action. So, anyway, so watching Mark play, and I'm like,
if everyone's listening, we're talking about Fret Action, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course, yes. Anyway, so it was Mark's inspiration that was like, wow, I tried to play guitar, and I still have, a real passion for it. And seeing my friend play Led Zeppelin songs in The Who, that was way more inspiring than Mel Bay's Book 1 of Mary Had a Little Lamb, which is what I was on.
And where did you grow up?
I grew up in, when I was, up till I was 6, we lived in Leonardo, but after that we were in Homedale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, when Homedale was nothing but farmlands at that point. Yeah, our neighborhood was pretty new, brand new. Actually.
So what was your first guitar?
It was a Guild.
That's not a bad first guitar.
No, it wasn't. It was a Guild Modera, which I guess was their sort of import line, like Gibson has Epiphone.
Right.
It was a double cutaway with P90s. I had no idea what any of that meant.
Right.
You know, now I do. Now I know I don't like that. Nothing wrong with that setup, but it's just not my thing. Anyway, that was the first guitar I had. Was that electric guitar, and you know.
And so did you get into like a period where you're like how many hours a day did you practice for how many years?
Oh, as much as absolutely possible, you know. And it was that determination of, again, my friend Mark, and still my dad, right? My dad was still playing. He had a Gibson, still has a Gibson Les Paul. And it was just like, for whatever reason at that age, like I got that bug of determination. Like, I want to do this. I don't care what it takes. Which is kind of
it
rare.
It just burned in your soul. You felt
an
immediate connection, like there's nothing else for me.
Yes, correct. And I was 13 at the time, so 12, 13, somewhere. That crossover of that. But yeah, that was it. I went back to book one. I went through the whole thing. I'm like, I know there's something to learn here. And there was. But I wanted to know how to play those songs my friend Mark was playing.
So what was the first band?
I was desperate to join a band. And my friend Mark already had a band and didn't need me. And I wasn't really up to that level yet. So I played with a couple of people. But my first band, it was a band called Fortress.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah. Great name. And I think I was probably 15 or 16, I think, at this point. So it was like only 2 years later that I was playing with people. And it was great. I had so much fun with the guys in that band, and I have recently reconnected with the drummer, who is now a big time sound guy down in Florida.
Oh, cool!
And we were able to reconnect and become friends again.
So you played through high school, you got your chops up, and you're a young lion jumping into the scene. What was that like, in going into the early origins of your professional endeavors as a musician?
I mean, definitely. I had such a great upbringing. I mean, even just with my parents alone. But the friends that I hung out with in high school being into music, and, of course, the connection to Kramer Guitar Factory, and got a chance to go there as a kid and hang out and think, wow, is Eddie Van Halen going to come walking through the door? And,
right, because he was endorsed at the time.
Yeah, and he was always popping by the factory anytime he was in town. So I think even Ed invested in the company, I think, at one point.
I think you're right. Which led him, I think, getting into that market, developing his own line. I think he's...
Yeah.
Which...
So
I guess Wolfgang inherited all that.
I believe so. So being able to hang there, it was such an inspiration, and coming out of high school, I was still playing with my friends from high school for quite some time.
Tell me something, since you brought up Eddie. I mean, he's been an influence on just about every guitar player I know. Curious on your perspective of Wolfgang. What you think of him?
He's a great musician. I
think so too.
He was raised obviously in a household of music, and having shoes like your dad.
He's got certain genetics.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, this is a kid that could have easily just been like, you know what, I'm just going to go tour Van Halen tunes the rest of my life and make, $1 million guarantees.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I want to do the music I want to do the way I want to do it. I respect him. I mean, I know obviously he's privileged. Not everyone gets to have like, oh, Guns N' Roses is going to let me open up because I'm Eddie Van Halen. But he owns it.
Yeah.
He gets those opportunities, but whenever he gets them, it seems like he's,
sure,
on point.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's I wish him all the best, and he's making great music. So he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. There's a cool little snippet of his dad, of Ed, and it was not long before he passed, I think. And it's all over the internet. And Eddie looks at the camera. He goes, "Man, you got to keep playing." Have you seen that?
I have it. That's
it's great.
It just puts chills down your spine, doesn't it?
It does, and it's like I never was fortunate enough to meet Eddie, and my friend Mark from high school, met Ed and hung with him a bunch of times, being, of course, who his dad was.
Right.
And Mark broke his arm once in high school, and he came to school the next day, and Ed and Michael and
Oh,
Alex
man.
all signed his cast, and he had the cast, which was disgusting, by the way, for many years, like in his room. He goes, "How could you throw that away?" Van Halen signed your cast, when you were in, when you were a freshman in high school.
He must have milked that.
Oh my God, yes, of course he did.
Oh my God.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was like pre 1984 album, wasn't it?
It was that they signed that.
So that was like Diver Down era,
Yes.
and they were all so cool.
Oh my God,
So freaking cool.
it's just awesome. So it's like, having, being around that, and it was like, wow, so close to Ed. But seeing Ed's little clip of the video saying, "Man, you got to keep playing. What else is there to do? That's the only thing to do." And then at the end of it, Ed goes, and I just started cracking up. And I was like, even, on days where I don't maybe want to do my career anymore, and we all have those days. I mean, it's a tireless.
It's an uphill climb being a lifer musician.
It is. And so at the end of Ed's little video, he goes, "You got to keep playing. And if you don't, I'm going to come find you." And it was like,
Yeah, I love that too.
Eddie Van Halen just threatened us if we don't keep playing. So I guess we're going to have to keep playing.
Amen. So what were some of your other early influences? I mean, you've mentioned Zeppelin. Obviously, Jimmy Page is
Oh, my God,
a
yeah.
standard bearer
Yeah.
in so many. Oh, I'm going to draw you into the age-old conflict here. Beck, Clapton, or Page?
Oh, my God. Yes.
Well played.
That's it. Because I was just listening to Jeff Beck yesterday, and it's like it's still mind blowing. I had a student, which I've been teaching guitar for many years, and he asked me, he's like, "What Beck should I listen to?" Because I haven't really listened to him. So I gave him a few things to chew on, and I went back myself and listened to it, and it's like, how do you make it sound like that? Only Jeff can do that.
Well, one of the things that's, I think, amazing about Jeff Beck is he was one of those musicians. I don't think he didn't have the same level of success as Page or Clapton, and I think he had a certain amount of fire and hunger that he just never stopped experimenting, exploring, and learning. Like he was still pushing himself, you know? And I think Page, well, you're Jimmy Page. You've had the most amazing guitarist, producer career of all time. You've written the most iconic songs and riffs of all time.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I can't even say that either, because remember that movie with Jack White and the Edge was in it? It might get loud.
Sure. Yeah.
I got to tell you, man, when he spanked them with Kashmir,
Oh my God.
I was screaming up and down in joy.
I know, me too.
I was like, yes.
And it's like they're all great musicians, and the Edge is such a great songwriter, right? And mind blowing what he did with the effects and everything, right? Like it's just incredible. And Jack
Kind of
White,
like an impressionist painter with textural kind of thing.
sure, and Jack White's a phenomenal musician. I saw him do this whole vaudeville thing that blew my mind.
Yeah.
But when Page starts playing Kashmir, it's just like there's no place left to go.
No.
That's
Yeah.
it. Like you just got to stand in awe when he plays, and it's like, wow.
Okay, so we're not going to debate about Beck and Page. It's
And with Clapton, it's like, of course everybody loves Clapton's playing in the Cream days because he was on fire, and I still think he was on fire. It was just in a different way in the years later. But what blows me away about Clapton is he never quit singing, and now look how good of a singer he's become.
Right.
He's unbelievable. Like he's singing Ray Charles tunes, like and doing it.
It's almost
so
like
from
he
the
had to
heart.
sing with his guitar before he learned how to sing with his voice.
Yeah.
There is an evolution. There's an evolution in your vocals too, because
Thanks, man.
I've been following you since, I don't know, probably early 2000s. I remember you playing at Crossroads.
Yeah.
Yeah,
here
I
in
remember.
Asbury. I missed that place.
But your vocals have gotten stronger. I find with vocals, like the more you can kind of like work through your personal stuff and live more in your personal authenticity, the better you can sing.
Definitely. And I mean, I always say, I'll be the first person to tell you, I wasn't born to be a singer. My wife was.
Yes.
I was born to play guitar. But out of necessity, which is back to those high school days of getting frustrated with having to deal with a lead singer, that's why I started singing. Because I knew the music I wanted to play, and I knew that it was in that Hendrix vibe, so that was another massive influence to me. Hendrix is my favorite guitar player of all time.
Okay.
And it's just because he touched me, his music touched me at such an early age of magic like it's just magical. Like how is he doing that? Much like Jeff Beck, obviously. So knowing that I wanted to do that kind of thing, it's like, well, Hendrix sang, and he wasn't Pavarotti.
No.
And he didn't need to be. So to portray his music. So that's why I started doing it, and it was one less person to have to wait on to show up to pay them,
or share the $50 with you got from the Sweet 16 party.
Exactly. Exactly.
No, I hear you, man.
But there was something magical, obviously, yet again, with a lead singer when he or she is out there, capturing the audience, and I learned that watching playing with Bon Jovi and being on a stage with him and watching him be out on the runway, and there's 60,000 people staring at him, watching him entertain the show, and it's incredible. Like that education I got watching John and standing next to him, and I'm like, holy crap, what am I doing here? How did I get here? I'm finally on the big stage and I'm playing with Bon Jovi. Like, it's not like I'm there with my own band. Like, I'm there with the biggest artist in the world, and this is an education that holy crap, soaking every second of this because I'm learning right now. I'm in school.
Well, since you brought it up, how did that all go down?
It was unbelievable. I mean, greatest time of my life next to getting married to Erin. It's like, what an education.
But how did it come to be? How did you get that gig?
So through teaching guitar, private guitar instruction for years, which was another influence from the guy we talked about before, Bernie Browsweater from BB and the Stingers. That was also a huge catalyst when I saw Bernie and his band play for the first time, probably 94 or 5, and Bernie doing that Hendrix thing. And wow, he only has to get a bass player and drummer. And that was the light bulb for me. I'm like, all right, I got to start singing, for better or for worse. I'm going to do this because I want to do what he's doing.
Speaking of Bernie, I first saw him with the Slaves of New Brunswick.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yep.
He was he was an amazing, he was one of those guys that was like, he's dialed into the, like, certain players, they play with like almost like a liquid electricity.
That's him.
He was just, he was always in the pocket. Yep. There was never a time that I saw that guy play where he got the nod from whoever was the band leader at whatever gig it was. It was just in.
Yeah, I know.
It was his band when he was playing, whoever he was playing with.
Oh, sure, definitely.
But he was a huge influence on you.
Massive, and I wound up studying with him. And I lived with his drummer, Bob Butterfield, at his house for quite some time.
I remember Bob Butterfield. Bob Butterfield was in Phantom's Opera at one point.
Oh, okay. So living at his house, BB and the Stingers rehearsed there every Monday night, and they would come hang out in my room, and I'd sit in the basement and watch them play. It was like an education again. It was just, world's biggest sponge is what I am.
And it was real life. I mean, you had Page who was on this pedestal.
Oh, my God, yeah.
But here was a real dude in real life.
Oh, my God. And seeing Bernie and just how humble he was and how nice he was to people, it was like there was a whole lesson just that, of just being a better person, which then influences the music that you play. When the ego gets in the way, and unfortunately it's in every place in the world.
Yes.
And it's like another day that goes by that you don't have an ego for that day is a successful day. And that's hard to do.
Well, speaking of ego, so we're Asbury Shore musicians. There's definitely some ego wounds.
Yeah, of course. To be expected.
How do you navigate being on stage with Bon Jovi? Arguably, they could easily lay a claim to being, if not the most successful recording artist, certainly in that conversation. How do you adjust? How do you come down from that altitude and then go play your next local gig?
That was hard because I was like, wow, I finally did this.
I'm there.
Yeah, I'm like there, like your whole life of what you've been dreaming about and looking at the posters on your wall of rock stars, and holy crap, I'm actually there.
Yeah.
And then it was like, and we came home, we did a killer, the Metal Reed Band did a whole show at the Pony, and we sold it out for the first time ever, which was like just the greatest time. It was such a roller coaster ride. And when the roller coaster comes to the end, it's like, all right, well, now we got to move on to the next chapter. And that's a hard thing to do, and Erin was a huge help with that, emotionally and everything else. 'Cause it was like, all right, well, John doesn't need me for another tour. Now what? We have to go back to playing bars? What do we do? Like, it was a hard thing, but you know, the other side
How
of
was
it.
the gig itself as a player?
Oh, it was the most greatest thing on earth, you know. But the other thing I wanted to say was I was just so thankful that I got a chance to do something that very few people get a chance to do. So how lucky am I? So
That's every Jersey boy's fantasy.
yeah.
To be, you know.
So like when I got home, I noticed that the people around me and fans treated me differently, and I'm like, guys, I'm the same person I was when I left for the tour. I didn't change. I'm never going to change. I'm always the same person. You know, I'll always be the humble person that I try to be every day.
So you're friends with David Bryan?
That is how I got the gig, correct. Yes, I'm sorry, back to that question. I met David through a student who I hadn't seen in a long time. And we're playing a gig at Jamie's in Red Bank. And my former student, walks in the door, and I'm like, wow, I haven't seen Brad in a couple of years. Oh, and then right behind him was David. And I'm like, I didn't know Brad knew David Bryan. Of course, how could you not know who David Bryan was? And then, so anyway, we take a break, and big hugs and, handshakes with Brad. And I'm like, God, it's so good to see you. He's like, yeah, Brad's like, I want you to meet David Bryan. And I'm like, oh, dude, I would love to meet David. And which I had previously met David at a wedding. Anyway, so I was like, David, man, if you want to come up and play a song, dude, you're more than welcome to. Our stage is your stage. And he was like, yeah, man, let's. And it was that moment of like, Had we been friends for the last 40 years? That's how music brings people together.
You just had camaraderie.
Yeah, and when you speak the same language on a musical level and have fun together, it's just like, holy crap, this was the coolest. This was such a great night. Like I could barely sleep that night. I was so just excited to have, a new friend of that level,
Can I interject for a moment and tell you why David Bryan's the coolest guy in Bon Jovi?
What?
So I went to Saraville High School. My first drummer in my first band is kid Bobby Bogan. He was friends with John and the early origins of Bon Jovi. We went to see them open for Rat at the Spectrum one night.
Wow.
16 years old, backstage with Bon Jovi, feeling pretty good about life.
Yeah.
I had just met Sambora, who was like a living god to me.
Sure.
And they're partying back there. And then when we all left, David Bryan took me and Bobby and said, guys, come out with us. And they had their tour bus outside the gates, and they all walked up, and David Bryan made sure that we were seen by all the girls waiting outside the gate.
How cool is that?
That we were hanging with Bon Jovi.
That's awesome.
And then we hugged all the guys and got a bear hug from David Bryan, and he I just looked at him like, thank you, man. Then I went back to my 73 Dodge Dart.
Oh, yeah.
Life went on. But for that moment, it was like all these girls, who are those guys? Why are they with John and Richie and David and Tico and Alec? Who are they? And we walked out, the bus leaves and we're just walking up the ramp and all these girls who are you? It didn't take them more than 10 minutes to figure out we were nobody when I got into my old Dodge Dart. But for that brief moment, it was just and that's why David Bryan's the coolest guy in Bon Jovi. That was such a sweet, kind thing to do.
That's awesome.
No,
David's got a heart of gold. And
I saw him at the Broadway Bar and Grill a couple years ago at a gig, and I was going to thank him for that story, but he was 10 people in deep trying to get his attention. I was like, maybe I'll have a chance to thank him. So if you see him, tell him thank you.
I definitely
that was
will.
such a cool thing to do. That was really cool.
And I think everybody in Bon Jovi, in my from my experience, obviously, were just as nice. John was cool as it can be, and I still chat with him any chance I can. And it was the experience of a lifetime. And I can't be more thankful than, hey, if nothing ever else happens in my career that comes close to that. But I got a chance to climb the flagpole and I rang the bell. And
yeah,
it's
man.
Even I shouldn't be complaining about bad days in the music industry, but there are. It's just the reality of life. And some days it's man, what am I doing? But I have to.
Right.
I
would imagine when you get
myself.
to that level, you're all right, well,
yeah.
Where's the
next?
It's got to be an adjustment psychologically to.
It definitely was.
It's like Gulliver's Travels, though. Being a musician, you go to one village and you're a giant,
yeah,
and then the next, now you're dodging giants.
Yeah.
Would you say a music career similar to that, where
oh, definitely.
you have these highs and you have these valleys, but you have to move forward.
Sure.
But do you think you'd be the player you are and have the emotion and expression and the psychic connection to the blues and the melodies if you hadn't gone through some of these trials and tribulations?
Oh, it's all part of it. That is one of my dear friends is Gordon Brown. We went to high school together.
Another guy who's been up and down.
Oh my God!
You know.
And anytime I get bummed out, and I'm like,
you guys went to high school together?
we went to high school together,
That's
and
awesome.
I copied off of Gordon in Spanish class because I had a hard time Spanish, and we still joke about it, or at least I joke about it with Gordon. So every once in a while, I text Gordon. I'm like, man, help me out here because I'm, on emotional, low, whatever. And Gordon always gives me the greatest advice, and I look up to Gordon like an older brother, because to me he was in music. He was off playing gigs when we were in high school, and I'm like, wow, he's actually doing real
Mr.
gigs.
Reality. I remember, I guess Brian Nelson managed him for a while, and he
Yeah.
used to run the Fast Lane.
Yep.
So I used to play there a lot, and you'd go to. Back then, you had to drive to go get the tickets from the promoter.
Sure.
And then I remember Mr. Reality was first getting together, and I was like, wow, this is smart. Because
Yeah.
everyone's getting bigger, louder, and then they're like,
No.
nah, acoustic 12-string bass and
amazing.
3-part harmony.
Oh, and their harmonies were just unbelievable. It's like listening to the Eagles, So anyway, so Gordon would be like, he would say this about our previous conversation. Gordon, man, what do I do? And he's like, it's supposed to be like this. And I'm like, why? Why does it have to be like this? And he's
Yeah.
like, because all those feelings of emotion that you're going through is going to go into your next song. It's going to go into your next riff. You're never going to forget that when you're on a bigger stage or a smaller stage or any place or just in the studio. All these things add up to be, they create the musician that you are. And you're never not learning. You're always, growing.
But you've had to double Jersey Boy tease because you've worked with Springsteen too.
Thankfully, yes, and another monster, obviously musician. But it's Bruce is a wealth of history knowledge and knowledge of music. The guy's unbelievable. Like just hanging and chatting with him about music. It's just like, wow, that's another education. There it is again. I'm back in school.
Now, you wrote a song with him, or
No,
he added to a song you wrote?
Yeah, so John Liedersdorf, who runs Lake House Music,
Yeah.
he and I wrote a bunch of songs together, and always loved writing with John. And John and I wrote this song called Black Boots, and it was actually about my old drummer, Bob Pantella, who's the drummer of Monster Magnet.
Okay.
And Bob always wore these black sort of, not combat boots, but, kind of, hiking boots. And I kind of made a joke. It was like, every time Bob puts his boots on, and we start drinking and having a good time, Bob becomes Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. But we all kind of had that in us. And me just telling that story to John Liedersdorf, he wound up, penning some lyrics, and that turned into Black Boots, and that's what the song was about. So, long story short, I was teaching Bruce's son, Sam, and Sam and I became really great friends. He's like a little brother kind of thing, and such a great guy now. This is many years ago. So Sam had asked me if I had anything new I was working on, and that happened to be the song. I was like, actually, you know what? I got like a rough mix of the song, called Black Boots. I would love to hear your opinion of it, because you grew up in a house of music, and you have a younger perspective.
And his mother has her own talents.
Oh my God, of course.
And then you got Niels Lofgren hanging around.
Yeah.
It's a lot of...
That's unbelievable, right? So,
Yeah.
and me being stuck, I'm in the 70s,
By the way, was there some intimidation factor when you're instructing Springsteen's kid how to play guitar?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's freaking Bruce. I mean, he can play a little bit of guitar himself.
Yes, he can. And, and Bruce would come in sometimes and and hang with us and pick up a guitar, and I'm like, this is the greatest moment. Like, I'm playing, with Bruce, and we're playing on a Dylan tune, trying to help his son be more inspired, to keep practicing. And it was just cool. It was cool as can be. It was just so nonchalant.
Elation and fear all at once.
It was just like, wow, I can't believe, I'm just, elated that, I'm on cloud nine and seeing Bruce just play in front of you, and it was just the coolest thing. It was so there's no pressure. It's just hanging with your friend Bruce, like
Right.
that, and that's how he is.
So it's more like you thought about it after it happened.
Oh, absolutely.
You're in the moment, and you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
that just happened.
Yep, exactly. So Sam was like, I said, I would love to hear the opinion of a teenager because I'm not connected to anything that's going on at that time in younger generation of music. I checked out after 78, right? So
Right. And you know it.
and I really wanted his opinion. It wasn't like a solicited thing. He asked me if I had, so I was like reluctantly gave him a copy of it. Anyway, so I guess he and his dad were going to Jack's Music, is what I was told. And Sam put the song on in the car, and Bruce started listening to it, and he liked it. So I seen Sam for his lesson the next week, and Sam was like, "Man, Matt, I really like the song Black Boots. I think it's great." And it's like, "Oh, cool. Any constructive criticism?" And he goes, "I don't know, but my dad even liked it." And he goes, "Matt, my dad doesn't say he likes anything."
Wow.
And I was like, "Holy crap!"
So
All
you
right.
stood a little taller that day.
I did, right? So as I was leaving
Well,
the
you
house,
know you can play guitar. But it must
yeah.
feel really nurturing
Well,
when you
especially
get a
a song-
songwriting
yeah,
acknowledgement from
Bruce.
the boss.
Yes,
That's like a blessing from the Pope.
it really was.
You had to feel like, did you feel like ordained in that moment? Like,
That was,
Get
yeah.
a tongue of fire come down on the crown
I'm
chakra.
like, I'm a made man. I'm in the mafia now. And that was, that's exactly how I felt. So leaving the house that day, I had seen Bruce, and Bruce mentioned it, and he goes, man, I really like that song, Black Boots. It's like, dude, I'm elated that you dig it. Thanks so much. And then it was like every ounce of energy of courage that I had in me, from the boots I had on. I was like, hey, if you ever have any thoughts of maybe playing on it, I'd be honored. And,
Understatement.
yeah, and Bruce kind of like stopped and thought about it for a second, and he's like, yeah, man, let's do something with it. And I was like, okay.
That's
Cool.
awesome.
And it's like, and I wasn't sure if Bruce's, stepping back for a minute was like, I can't believe this kid just asked me this, but
Right.
it wasn't. It was him thinking about,
Can I make a legitimate contribution to it?
yes, and that's
He wasn't thinking as
he
a
was
rock
not.
star. He
Nope.
was thinking as a fellow musician. Can I add value?
which was the coolest thing, and I didn't realize it at the moment that that's what that was.
Right.
It wasn't until like later on when he did his contribution, and I was like, holy crap, his parts are so good. Not that I wouldn't think that they wouldn't be.
Right.
That I went back and redid my vocals because his was so damn good
Right.
that mine didn't look so good anymore. And I'm like, we're going to recut my vocals. Absolutely, 100%.
There would have been a tangible value to him having a presence on the song no matter what. But the fact that he wanted to deliver an authentic, best contribution he could elevated the whole thing.
Absolutely, and it absolutely did with that song. And and looking back to the Steel Mill stuff, like when Bruce was doing sort of the blues rock thing, but Bruce like transformed himself into the performance that's on Black Boots, and he sounds like he's supposed to be there singing that song. It doesn't sound like any E Street song, obviously, different thing. And that was the most unbelievable part. When I first heard Bruce's track, I was like, holy crap, he sounds like Greg Allman or anybody else from that.
I got to interject with you one more time because I just remembered something. Vinny Lopez, years ago, was doing the Steel Mill retro thing. He invited me over to his house in Jackson. When I was first doing Area, we're thinking about putting out the stuff. I guess Bruce is like, yeah, re-record it, do whatever you want with it or whatever. So, first of all, he's nuts. He's a wonderfully nutty guy.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yes.
But he lives like right next to the lion cages at Great Adventure.
I've been there once, and I think I remember that.
Oh, I'll never forget it. Because we're there, and he's like slamming me with rum and cokes, and we're smoking a couple joints, and he's grilling up cheeseburgers, and all of a sudden I hear this like deep guttural roar. And I'm like, what the hell? He's like, oh, yeah, I didn't mention I live next to the lions at the safari park. I'm like, of course you do.
Time to go.
Of course you do. He played me
Yeah.
some of that San Francisco era stuff with Bruce as a guitar. He could have had a whole other world
Oh, playing guitar.
as a psychedelic guitar player.
Yep.
Like, I didn't know. Because now he plays, he's more of a statesman soloist. Kind of seems like he gets in, he gets out, and he's got his, like, he can play. But it's not indulgent and meandering.
Yeah.
This shit was like, could have competed with Garcia.
Oh, my God.
Or
no.
Santana. It was like,
Bruce played a lot of guitar back then.
yeah,
and
I was
he
astonished. I was
yeah.
like, I had no idea he had this. So I'm just supporting what you're saying. Like, I had no idea he had this whole other persona musically of the Guitar Hero archetype.
Yeah. No, he's he did a great solo on Black Boots, and and his vocal performance it's incredible, and he's singing high B notes in the chorus of what Aaron sings.
Right, and he must have been in his 60s.
Yeah, and it's like,
and it's not like he hasn't like put a little mileage on those vocal cords.
No, and when we got the tracks back, I'm like, who's singing that? Holy crap, that's Bruce singing a high B. And it's like, I and from the story that I was told was that Bruce was having a really good time, great mood, dancing around the studio singing Black Boots when he cut the track. That he was, and he said it reminded him of the steel mill days, and which I thought was such a an honor to even be in, even have him just listen to the song, let alone play on it. That was like his contribution to that song.
So having worked with John and Bruce, were there any uniform insights? Any, like, they're both alpha dogs.
Sure.
And then, like, did you see some kind, like, what did you get out of that? Was there any kind of, like, observational lesson? Like, I mean, they both seem like they're the kind of guy that would go to football practice and then go home and work out. Like, they have that extra whatever it is.
They workaholics, so constantly working.
Do you find them similar kind of archetype, or what was the distinction between working with them? If there's anything that you could share.
I mean, they're, like I said, they're both, perfectionists, diehard, workaholics, they just work. And that, I have a lot of that in myself too. It's like, you got to kill me to get me to quit, So it was like, just seeing that in them was like, all right, I'm on the right track here. I got to keep going,
Right. No, well, I don't know what your spiritual thoughts are about universal manifestation and stuff like that, but I mean, like, the universe is like giving you some pretty big, like,
names,
affirmations here. It's like, yeah, no, you're on a level. Like, keep going.
Yes.
Keep going.
And again, seeing them work, like after the concert, John would go back to his room and review the videotape.
Wow.
And I'm like,
that many years into it.
Oh my God. Yeah. And me, it's like, when we finished the Atmos recording, when you sent it, I was like, even though it was a few days later, I always have that cringe factor of like, we screwed this up and screwed that up.
Right.
And it's like, but like to sit there and watch yourself right after the concert.
Now, when you did the Bon Jovi tour,
I don't know how he does it.
That was, how recent had Sambora left the band?
I think had left a year before.
So it was still fresh.
I think, or it was a year, or at least a year and a half, yeah.
So you think John was energized to prove, like, as much as we love Richie, this band will go, like...
And that's incredible in itself right there. That John, again, the workaholic that he is, and he is just, he's the quarterback, man. He's running it, and it's incredible, again, for me... a kid from Homedale standing next to him,
right,
seeing the white mic stand that I saw back in the videos, and when I was hanging out with my friend from Kramer, right? And now I'm playing with him, it was like, and watching him command an audience. That's how his life is. Like, he's, it's incredible,
He's also a big Elvis fan.
I didn't know that. I never talked to him about that.
I actually was one of the kids that helped pick out the songs on Slippery When Wet.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, they had recorded all the demos at a place called Century Sound right on Washington Road in Saraville.
That's so funny, because that one of those early bands you asked me about, the first time I ever recorded in a real
Mickey
studio
Yannick?
was with Mickey. And
no shit.
And
the drummer from Megaton?
Yep. Yes.
Yeah. I used to sit in with them at Connie's on Route 35.
Yes. Oh my God. And John Mulrennan was.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
They did some great work.
They did.
They did some great work. They had a 16-track.
Yes, 2-inch tape.
Yeah, the good 16-track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, so they did the pre-production there, and actually, the original version of "I'll Be There for You" had Sambora on lead vocals.
Oh, no kidding.
And because I guess if you could call like John King Arthur, Sambora was like his Lancelot. It was like his number one knight at the table.
Yeah.
So that had to be a big blow. So he must have been somewhat energized to like just show the fan base like, hey, we're still strong.
Sure, of course.
So there had to be some pressure on the guitar team.
Oh, absolutely.
You were playing with Phil X?
Yeah, so essentially, Bobby Bandiera was there for 9-10 years, I guess, playing with Richie. And filling out the sound of the band. It's like, as we all get older, it's, it's harder to keep doing all the work, on your instrument. So having some extra hands around really helps.
Plus, that stuff was quadruple tracked.
Oh my God, yeah. So having an extra fiddle player is, and especially Bobby, who's a phenomenal musician, and his list of song knowledge that he can just pull out of nowhere is insane. I don't know how many songs he's got in his head. 1,000, 2,000, who knows?
Right.
Every time you see Bobby, it's like, God, I can't believe he even knows that song. But that's just Bobby, right? So Bobby decided to sit one out because he had some other things going on in his life, and that's where I came in, got the gig to fill in for him.
That's awesome.
And I remember calling Bobby saying, "Hey, man, I'm so thrilled to fill in for you. It's your gig, it's not mine. And he was appreciative of that. So and that was it. So it was myself and Phil, and we had such a blast playing together. And Phil's a monster guitar player. He plays his rear end off. And
Seems like a very positive person too.
He is, and he's always like, he's always wide awake, like ready to go. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it, dude. I'm like, I'm ready for a nap, and he's just on fire. He's such a great guitar player and a great guy.
I'm so happy for you having that experience. That's amazing.
Yeah, it was wonderful. And it was like Phil and I had a couple moments where it was like we were the little kids in the candy store because we're playing some solos back and forth on this one tune we were doing. And we did that nightly, and it was like looking out at the audience and like everybody's like on just in it with us. And it's like, I can't believe we're here doing this. It's like what we always
Did you have to
dreamed,
learn any of Sambora's parts?
I had to learn mostly the parts that Bobby was doing, but I tried to learn as much as I possibly could. It was a lot of information, to try to catch up to, It was fun. We had a blast.
Because he's a great player too, and he's done some really melodic.
Richie's parts and his vocals were so incredible.
That's the scary stuff.
That's the
scary stuff.
It is.
Just replacing Sambora's vocal, I would imagine, would be very daunting.
Yeah, and it's he was such a great singer.
So, if you could win the musical lottery, how would you spend your ticket? What would the ultimate thing look for you if you could? Matt O'Ree could have what he wants the way he wants it. How would that look?
I mean, and this is a great thing to say. I have the band of my dreams. You
got a great freaking band.
Everybody's on the same page. We're family. We hang out with each other all the time. We are family.
Do you feel stressed though? Because you have the band of your dreams, and I know when I've led bands before, like I always felt pressure to keep them busy, keep them active, keep them happy, keep bringing raw chunks of antelope to put on the table so someone doesn't steal them, or you know what I mean?
Sure. But we've been playing together for a long time.
Your family.
Yeah, we are absolute family. But if I won the lottery, I would love for the world to see this band, because it's, because it is that. It's that vibe of the 70s of a family of musicians, and everybody's so great, singularly, but then collectively, like the band is it's a great time every time we play, and it's just a great vibe. It's never a sad moment, really, even when there are sad moments, that we might be singing about. But, if the world could see that, on the big stage, that would make me the happiest.
One thing that's always puzzled me, and particularly like when I started my label like a long time ago, it's always been a frustration to me that, because I feel like in our area, there's such a wealth of musical talent. It's insane.
In this state?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and especially the shore. There's just something.
There is.
There's just something magical here.
It's the pizza.
But it's always been a frustration to me seeing generation after generation, you see like really good bands or solo artists just dying on the vine, and like, no disrespect to Bon Jovi or Springsteen, but like you'll have people that'll spend $500 a night to go see them 5 nights in a row at the stadium, and it's hard to get them to spend like $10 to go to the Saint to see somebody. Like,
I know.
Where are we failing to inspire like music fans to like expand their diet? I don't know. I've always been so confused by that. I'm like, well, it's not that I begrudge anyone their success, but wouldn't it be great if we like lived in a world with like a mid-level artist that could fill the Paramount like every night? Every night of the
course.
week, there should be someone playing there.
Yep.
You know, like I'd like to see more people having a share of the success, and because it's just music fans are missing out.
I know, and there are so many talented people around here, and there have been for years, and they should be. We just talked about it earlier with Billy Hector. You know,
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
greatest blues guys. You know, around. You know, and the whole world should know about Billy.
And for not for like the past couple of years either.
No.
He's been around.
Of course,
And
you know.
he's still tearing it up.
Yes, he is. You know, but it's tough, and it's a thing. You know, it's a tough world, obviously. But I mean, the most we can do is keep playing, like Eddie Van Halen said.
Actually, now it's the only thing we can do.
Yeah.
I was on like my CD Baby account the other day, and one of my tunes got used by an Instagram video, and there was like 5,000 plays on the tune. I don't even know whose video it was. There's
That's awesome.
Well, you'd like to think so, right?
Well,
but it was
yeah,
like less than a penny.
I know.
And I'm like, come on, man. Like,
Yep.
why can't we get fair compensation like anybody else? Like a musician deserves
Yeah.
to make a living the same as anybody else.
Of course, especially if your song was used in something, you know. Like
Yeah,
that's,
like you
you're
don't want to have
supposed
like
get paid for
delusions
that.
of grandeur, but like,
No.
but something when things start happening in thousands or hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
Because I remember back in the day, like if you sold a song on iTunes, you'd get 59 cents per
Yeah.
iTunes.
Sure.
Well, even like a nobody, if you sell a couple thousand, like remember Brian Amsterdam?
Yes.
Okay, me and him, we jammed one night, and I just made a 12-bar blues out of the Batman theme.
It's awesome.
And so for the hell of it, and it was just me and him just going back and forth, for the hell of it, I just edited it and I threw it on iTunes. Now, it wasn't because I was particularly popular,
Yeah.
but Batman fans are freaks.
Oh, yes, they are.
So I sold tens of thousands of copies of this iTunes.
Wow.
Again, not because of me or my as much as at the time I probably wanted to be like, wow, they must really like my playing. No, it was just because Batman fans are they're like Trekkies.
Yeah.
So there was a certain percentage of them.
Did Warner Brothers come after you?
No,
Wow.
that Neil Desty composition or whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I never, it stayed under the radar. But I was just like, it was just amazing because you realize that, well, first of all, it's not necessarily about the music. It can just be it was about Batman.
Sure.
But it was just like found money because
Yeah.
it was like got lucky. But like if that happened now,
Oh,
like
you'd
back
be-
then I made, I don't know, probably a couple grand off of a stupid, goofy
Yeah.
Asbury Park jam one night, right?
Well, now it'd be like $2.
Not even.
Yeah.
So it's like, how does music continue to survive if there's not a way for like a lifer like you or like other people that are just doing everything they can, balls to the wall? Like, it's like the only thing left is playing live. It's like it's like you're a knight and you have to go into the town and challenge for battle. Like, you know, it's like there's like, you know,
And it gets really hard the more you're touring too, because you know you go play in Ohio and nobody knows who you are because you don't live there, and there's no radio, right? So it's a really tough thing, you know. And
right. So I
we've-
guess tour
you know,
scheduling must be like real perilous. Like, all right, well, we know we might have a few hundred people
maybe,
here.
we hope.
So if we can get here where we know we're going to do all right, we can afford to have a not as successful night somewhere else.
Yes.
And limp to the next thing where we'll get a little honeypot.
That's exactly, yeah. So we, you know, when we book our cross country tours that we've been doing, and we decided this year, as opposed to last year, anyway, there was a major anchor gig that we had out in New Mexico, a big
Gotcha.
biker rally we do, and it's such a fun time, and it's near in the mountains, it's just beautiful. But you know, and that would be the anchor for our tour. That
Okay,
we,
so you
we-
get
we
the
knew
score
that-
gig,
yes,
and that
yeah.
allows you to do a marketing effort in other
Yep.
ancillary markets, hoping next time you come around, you're
Yeah,
going to
more-
bring a friend.
Exactly, and it's tough, man. It's my friend John Ginty said it. It's a thankless job.
John, the keyboard player?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great guy.
Oh my God,
You know.
monster! And he's right. It's a thankless job because it's like you're playing to nobody. Like, but it's like.
But
hey,
meanwhile, every day people think you're just this magical elf that just exists on love and vibes and everything's
yeah.
cool. And you have
until
to
gotta-
project that.
until when you're sleeping in a Walmart parking lot eating a frozen pizza.
Right.
That's still frozen.
It's still frozen because your generator's not working.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then again, you get to the next gig, you don't want to project that.
No.
You got to be like, hey, I'm so grateful. I'm so happy to be here. Like,
Yep.
you got to just put on your makeup and
It's like
your stage
yeah.
mask, and you just gotta own it.
It's like an acting, or actors to some degree.
I mean, I'm sure the music itself always summons.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, this is why I'm going through this for this
Sure.
moment. But it has to be tough when you're demoralized from an arduous tour or
Yeah.
breakdown or whatever, and then people want to small talk you, right? And then if you're like a dick once, it's on Instagram.
I know.
There's all that now too.
Yeah,
It's like
of course.
a gotcha moment.
Yep. And when we were stuck in Kansas, it was Wichita, and it was like I think we had like 3 gigs or 4 gigs to get home, which is not a whole lot of gigs to go that many miles, but that's all we were able to get. So
Right.
now it's like, all right, it's mostly driving, but we're on our way home, and I can't wait to get home. And now we missed a gig, and now it's like, do I just throw a couple of plane tickets on my credit card to get the guys home? And
Right.
and
Do
the
I
rest,
cut my losses here?
yeah, and
before-
everybody, and my wife and I'll just drive the bus and trailer home, and just it's like, what do you do at that point? Well, again, without deep pockets behind you, financing this, and they'd be paying for all these mishaps, but you got to pay them back, plus interest.
Oh yeah. Nothing's free.
No, and it's like, and I guess it was always like that, but it's just it's difficult, and what person really wants to put their money behind a band? It's not really like, you're probably not going to make much. You hope you do as an investor. I hope there's still people out there that believe in rock and roll that want to do that,
Well, we were talking before about guitars. I mean, there's people willing to spend $50,000 on a guitar.
It's true.
So you never know.
That's true. That's definitely true. So, but it's, but the other side of it, all right, so we're out there in the middle of nowhere, and there's 10 people at the show. Hey, we're someplace, not at home playing. And that's great too. You got to count your blessings there.
Plus, I guess you never know when on a given night you could be in anywhere USA, but someone might be having an evangelical experience about you might be turning on a kid.
Yeah.
To really, that might be someone's gateway drug to really having a lifetime of loving music.
And I can't tell you how many times we've been in the middle of nowhere, and there's, a new fan's like, their last $5 or $10, and they're buying your CD, and they got no more money, and it's like,
because you've been that kid.
oh my God, yeah. I mean, you see it, and it's like, wow, that's like, you almost want to give them the record, but you got to put fuel in the tank too, and it's, but it's it's very humbling to see that, and like, you
But it must
really
be what
appreciate.
sustained you.
It does, yeah, and it puts a smile on your face that, like, wow, this person really liked what you do, and they're going to spend their last $5 instead of buying a beer on your music, which is cool, or your T-shirt or hat. That's another thing too. Touring and merchandise sales, it's like that's a whole nother silent partner. That's you got it, and it's such a pain in the butt.
It's got to be
But
such
you
a
have to
personal
do it.
discipline. You
Yeah.
got to put that money up front.
Yep.
And then you didn't start playing guitar because you want to sell T-shirts.
No.
But you got to keep counting inventory.
Have to.
You
Yep.
got to put the money in the bank. You can't be like, all right,
No.
like you're starving, and all of a sudden you got $600 in merch money. And you're like, let's go to friggin'
Yeah, it's got
Crack
the
a Barrel
dinner. Yeah.
and like just go ape shit. But you can't.
You
You're
can't.
like, nope, we got to go back to the bus. We got to eat ramen noodles, eggs, and mixed vegetables.
Yep.
And we got to put that into things so we can buy more T-shirts. So hopefully 6 shows down the line, we can do that.
I've gotten really accustomed and happy with, and I just said this before, sleeping in a Walmart parking lot with a frozen pizza, some hot sauce, gotta have hot sauce, and a beer, and it's like, and that's the end of our day, and like we throw on a stupid movie on the bus, and everybody's having a good time, and it's it's a slumber
The
party.
music does have to be its own reward.
It does, yeah,
Anything else is gravy.
yep, exactly. But it's a tough road, but it's I'd rather be doing that still than punching a time clock. Even though it feels like we are doing that to some degree. With other pitfalls that could be even worse. And hey, at least you go to work 5 days a week. You get a paycheck at the end of the week. It's predictable. Our lives, it's like, I don't know what's going to happen next week. But that's kind of cool too. So it depends on how you look at it.
Well, you could have a long, safe life with a very limited range of experience, or you could swing the bat hard.
Yeah.
I think seem like you've proven to yourself you're the person you'd rather leave it all on the field.
Sure, absolutely. And when all else fails and you're really down, just call Gordon Brown. He'll be able to talk you off the ledge. Thank you, Gordon.
That sounds like a good place to wrap it. If there's some kid that was listening to this right now and he wanted to, or she wanted to get started, do you have any kind of words of wisdom for the next generation?
I really hope in my heart that there's enough kids of the next generation that do want to do this, as difficult as it is, and everything that we've covered today. Because it's still, at the end of the day, when they put you in the box and in the ground, do you want to live with regrets that you should have done this or should have done that? You could always go back to something else. Chances are you won't. But it's like, seeing people smile and having a great time and loving your music. There's nothing better reward than that. Bon Jovi said it himself. He goes, money doesn't change anything. It makes things easier. But that
sure helps when that bus breaks down.
Yes, it does. But I just saw a recent interview with John, and he said John is an incredible speaker, way better than I'll ever be. And he did an interview, and what he said, it was like, wow, even still, I'm not even playing with him anymore, and I'm still learning from that guy. It's like everything he said, I completely got it. And he's right. Go out there and leave it on the field.
It's better to strike out than be afraid to leave the dugout.
Yep, absolutely.
Man, I'm so grateful for your time. I wish you the best of luck and all the success that you and your band deserve. You have my utmost respect. I really admire the tenacity. I mean, the talent's a given. You're a godly gifted guitarist and writer and singer, and
thank you.
And I envy you in that you found the band that really communicates your vision, because that's a whole other another podcast.
That is, like that. Back to that wish, if I had one wish, I hope come out and see us, because I hope the world gets to see this iteration of the band. Now is
there a particular date on the coming up that you'd like to tell people about?
I don't know what's on the calendar.
Well, I'll just add it to the podcast.
Sure.
When you get back to me.
Find us obviously on our website, but we've had so many people in the Matt O'Ree band over the years, and every single one that's ever been and played with me and played with us, always has a special place in my heart. Always will, and it's been a journey. My favorite, at this point, obviously, is the current thing, because that's what's happening now. It's not that
Right, you always want to be present with what is.
Sure, and I really think what we have right now is so special. Not that the last configuration wasn't special. We covered many miles together. Me, Eric Safka, Scott Bennett, and John Hummel. We drove so many miles across the country, and we had so much fun together. That was another thing too. That even when the chips are down, we always have fun together.
Well, I guess Africa was good to have on the road, because he probably could fix the bus.
He could, yes. Well, the part that blew up on the bus the last time, that needed a shop. There was no way we were fixing that on the side of the road.
Oh.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
So awesome having this time with you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I hope we talk again soon, and I can't wait to hear how that Atmos release comes out, and I can't wait for you to finish your next record. Do you have a working title on that or anything?
We don't know. We're still, we're still writing songs.
Are you taking suggestions?
Of course, we're always, yeah.
All right. Thanks again, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.